Hi, good to see you again. Welcome to Block 4, a new block of learning, operations and equations with directed numbers. Another word for directed numbers is positive and negative integers. So we can rephrase this as operations and equations with positive and negative integers. Lesson 1. I'll share my screen. So, in this your first lesson in block 4, you're going to learn how to use representations of directed numbers, otherwise called positive and negative integers. Before we start, I would like you to click on the like button for this video, subscribe to the channel, share the video to children you think can benefit, and click on the notification bell so that when new videos are uploaded, you will be notified. By doing so, you help us grow our mission of providing a platform where children all over the world can get high quality maths education regardless of their economic circumstance. Thank you. Before we start, I would like you to do the retrieval practice question in 3 minutes. All right, assuming you've paused the video and you've answered the questions, here are the answers. Let's discuss them. So for these are the numbers that we should use to complete the number line or the intervals. If you do not know how intervals work, I will explain it here. But if you still do not understand, I would advise you to go and watch our very first lessons in term 1, where we have learned, or where I have taught directed how to complete intervals on number lines. Okay, how do we do this exactly? So very quickly, you can see that the difference between this point here on the number line and here is 20. So 30 minus 10 is 20, okay? Now, we know that we have this interval. So we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. 5 intervals between the numbers 10 and 30. But the value between 10 and 30 is 20. So it means we're going to have to divide 20 by 5. So each interval is actually 4. So it means the numbers go up in 4. So we'll now start adding 4 each time. Here, this one, we can see that the difference between 0 and 2 is 2. But we have these intervals for this value too. So we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. We have 6 intervals. So it means that value of the difference between 0 and 2, we're going to have to divide it by 6. 2 over 6 is 1/3. So this number line is going up by 1/3. So 1/3, 2/3, 3/3, 4/3, 5/3, 6/3. 6 over 3 is 2. Yeah? Okay, next one. We can use the same knowledge to complete this linear sequence where we have some of the numbers missing. So imagine that these are the intervals. So imagine that these are the intervals. Now, what is the value between 50 and 29? So 50 minus 29 is 21. Now we have 21, but we have this interval. We need to know by how much we're adding from here to here. So that's that interval, this interval, and that interval. So we have 3 intervals between 50 and 29, which means we're going to have to divide 21 by 3. So 21 divided by 3 is 7. So it means the numbers have to go up in 7. Remember, for a linear sequence, the numbers are constant. They change at a constant with a constant number. So if we keep going, that will be, you can see is decreasing. So the number line is decreasing or the sequence is decreasing. So we have to subtract 7 each time. Okay, let's do our new learning. So remember, when we talk about directed numbers, we're actually learning about positive and negative integers. Integers mean whole numbers. Now, we're going to be using counters to help us understand the concept of positive and negative integers. Now, we're going to use yellow counters for positive integers and red counters for negative integers. So, how do we go about this? Just a minute. So, if I ask you how many counters do we have here, you will tell me quickly it's 5. So that is positive 5. Now, in maths, we could write this as positive 5, but it's the same thing as just writing 5. So we don't really bother, except we are working in context or in situations where we have to show the sign of the number. That's when we'd write the positive next to the number. Otherwise, just writing a number like this, everyone knows that it is positive. But for this one, we have 5 negative counters. So we'll write that that represents negative 5. If we add some more, we'll say, okay, that's 6. If we add one more negative counter, we'll say that's negative 6. If we add 3 more, we'll say that's 9 or positive 9. And if we add 3 more, we'll say that's negative 9. Okay, let's look at another example to see how we can use our knowledge of negative and positive numbers to complete this number line. Now you can see that the difference between 0 and 10 is 10. But we have 5 intervals. So it means to find out what each of these intervals go up by, so to be able to fill this bar here with the correct number, we have to divide 10 by 5. So the number will go up in twos. So we're adding 2 every time. So if we do that, that becomes our number line. But what about the other side of the number line, the left-hand side? Well, if we were adding 2 going to the right, does it not make sense to think that we would be subtracting 2 going to the left? Of course. So if we do that, we'll see that that is how we produce the numbers on the number line when we're going to the left. So 10 subtract 2 is 8, 8 subtract 2 is 6, so on and so forth. When we get to 0, 0 subtract 2 is negative 2. So on the left of your number line, after 0, you start to have negative numbers. So now we'll start to complete the number line, and that gives us this number line. Now, have you noticed something between negative 4 and 4? They are of the same distance from 0. Have you also noticed negative 10 and 10? They are of the same distance from 0. They are 5 intervals apart from 0. It's now time for you to practice what you've learned. So far you've learned how to use negative numbers on a number line by thinking about the intervals and how to complete the intervals on a number line. Pause the video and answer questions 1 and 2 in 3 minutes. Assuming you've paused the video and you've answered the questions, here are the answers. Mark your work and celebrate your success. So here we've been told to use red as negative 1 and yellow as positive 1. And here are the answers. So this is to help you recall and really understand the concept of negative numbers. Okay, circle the number that is closest to 0. Of course, it is -1. So by now, you know how we use our number line, and we know that from after +1, we have 0, and we start to have negative numbers. And then here you were asked to explain your answer. Okay. We use our number line to get our answer for that. So it is only 1 away from 0. Okay. So that is the closest number to 0. Let's move on. Pause the video and answer question 3 in 2 minutes. Assuming you've paused the video and you've answered question 3, here are the answers. Here is a number line. Mo has marked the number 17. Mark the number -17 on the number line. How do you know where -17 is? Well, we know because it has to be the same distance from 0 as 17, but on the opposite direction. So by now, remember what we learned, that the negative number will maintain the same distance from 0 as the positive number on the right-hand side. Pause the video and answer question 4 in 2 minutes. Assuming you've paused the video and you've answered question 4, here are the answers. So here is testing your knowledge or helping you practice how to read intervals and your number line. So just to discuss this one, why have we chosen this to be -15? We can see that between here and here, we have 0 and 5. So it means each of the interval is worth 1. So that should be 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So if each of these is 1, then that has to be -3, that has to be -8, and then counting, 11, -11, -12, -13, -14, and -15. And then here, again, you can see that we have, just a minute. Let's move this out of the way. So here, we can see that we have 0, between 0 and 10, we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. We have 5 intervals. Now, because we have 5 intervals, if we divide 10 by 5, we'll have 2. So each of these is 2. So that's 2, that's 4, that's 6. So if that is 6, here has to be 5. And then going to the negative part of the number line, that's -2, -4, -6, and so on and so forth. That's how we got the information for that number line. Let's move on. Let's look at an example now before you do some further practice. What mistake have you spotted? So Joe has written, let's move this out of the way. Joe has written an estimate for 2 numbers that the arrows are pointing to on the number line. Joe has made a mistake. What mistake has Joe made? So have a think. What mistake has Joe made? Well, if you think about it, halfway between 4 and 8 has to be 6. So that's correct. How do we know? 4 plus 8 is 12. 12 divided by 2 is 6. And you can see that the arrow is pointing halfway between 4 and 8. But that wouldn't be right, would it? Remember what we said. For a number line, the distance would have to be equal if we refer to the same number. So if it was actually -6, it should be the same distance about here. All right. So that number must represent something else. And how do we know? Negative 12 add negative 8 is negative 20. Negative 20 divided by 2 will be negative 10. So that number has to be negative 10. All right, let's look at another example. If we are asked to work out the missing terms in the linear sequence, what do we know about linear sequences? We know for linear sequence, the linear sequence will either increase or decrease by the same amount every time. So looking at this number line, we can see that the difference between 0 and 10 is 10. So this number line is either increasing, going to the right by 10 every time, or decreasing, going to the left by 10 every time. So using that knowledge, we can add 10 to negative 30, which will give us negative 20. Okay? Or negative 10 subtract negative 10 will give us negative 20. And then here, adding 10 every time, that will be 20. All right, it's now time for you to pause and answer the questions to practice what you've learned. So what have we learned so far? You have learned about using directed numbers, so positive and negative integers or whole numbers, to complete number lines, to complete intervals. And you've also learned that using your knowledge of how to work out intervals, you can use that same knowledge to complete linear sequences. Pause the video and answer question 5 in 2 minutes. Assuming you've paused the video and you've answered question 5, here are the answers. So here we were asked, which numbers are the arrows pointing to? Label them on the number lines. Here we can see between 0 and 10, the value is 10. We have two intervals. So we have this interval and we have this interval. So if we have two intervals and we have two intervals between 0 and 10, which the difference is 10, so it means 10 divided by 2 is 5. So we know these numbers are going up either by 5 or to the left side going down by 5. So that should be negative 5 and then negative 10. We can use the same knowledge here. We see that between 0 and 50, the difference is 50. So we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Now, we have 5 intervals between 0 and 50. 50 minus 0 is 50. So 50 divided by 5 is 10. So we know that this interval, this number line, goes up by 10 or goes down by 10. So that should be 10. If that is 10, that should be 20. And then that should be 30. So if that is 20 and that's 30, that should be 25. And then that should be 70, because remember, it's going up in 10. So that should be 60, 70, 80, 90, 100. So going that way, that would be negative 10, negative 20, negative 30, negative 40, and negative 50. We can use the same knowledge here. We see that between 0 and 40, the difference is 40, but we have two intervals. Two intervals between 0 and 40. So 40 divided by 2 is 20. So this number line will either increase going to the right by 20 every time, or decrease going down by 20 every time. So if that is the case, this should be 20. So halfway between 0 and 20 has to be 10. How do we know? 20 divided by 2, because we need half of that, is 10. That should be 60, because we're going up by 20, 20, 40, 60, 80. Next, we have going down in 20. So that will be negative 20, negative 40, and then negative 60. Pause the video and answer question 6 in 2 minutes. Assuming you've paused the video and you've answered the questions, here are the answers. So here we ask, what is each number line going up in? give your answer as a fraction. So we can see between 0 and 4, there are 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. There are 8 intervals. But 4 minus 0 is 4. So we have to divide 4 amongst those 8 intervals. Now, 4 divided by 8, remember division can be expressed as a fraction, is a half. So this number line is going up as a half every time. This one, we have 1 between 0 and 1, right? So we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. We have 5 intervals. Now we have to divide 1, because 1 minus 0 is 1. We have to divide 1 amongst those 5 intervals, which is 1 over 5. Remember, division can be expressed or written as a fraction. This one is between 0 and 1, we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. So we have 7 intervals. So 1 divided by 7 is 1 over 7. All right. Pause the video and answer questions 7 and 8 in 3 minutes. Assuming you've paused the video and you've answered questions 7 and 8, here are the answers. Let's discuss them. So you're going to mark your work and celebrate your success. So here, we're told to estimate the number the arrow is pointing to on the number line. When you see this word estimate, it means you need to get as close as possible. It's not going to be exact. And in an exam, they would usually give the answer to be either plus or minus 1, okay? So somebody could get 41, somebody could get 43, they would still be right. So here, we can see that between negative 50 and negative 40, it has to be 10. So if that is the case, and we are, remember, going that way, it is increasing by 10 every time. Then if this is 40, that has to be negative 42. Or somebody else might write negative 41. Okay? So that should be negative 42. Next, this one. We can see that we have negative 1,000 and then 0. Now, we can see that we have 1, 2, 3, 4. We have 4 intervals. Now, it means negative 1,000, because negative 1,000 to 0, you have 1,000 to split among 4 intervals. So each of them is worth 250. Now, if each interval, so this should be negative, negative 750. Okay, that should be negative 500, negative 250. That should be 250, and that should be 500. Now, if that is the case, this has to be, so think about it. If we really want to estimate, this should be about 300. Yeah? All right. So estimating means you say, okay, how many parts can I really split this? So if that is, let's say 50, another one, 350, 400, 450, and then 500. So you can see they're about, split equally. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Yeah. So that should be about 300. Then here, what temperature are shown on the thermometers? So this is testing your ability to read scale properly. So you can see that is negative 20. That is 0. So between 0 and negative 20, we have how many intervals? We have 1, 2. So it means this should be about 10. And that should be 5. So if that is the case, that should be negative. Remember, you're going closer to 0. The number will start, as you go higher, when the numbers are high, a negative number is smaller as the numbers are bigger. So that should be negative 15. So negative 15 is bigger than negative 20. So something you need to know, we're going to look at one question where we will see it. A really big negative number is actually a small number, right? I'll repeat. A really big negative number is actually a small number. So negative 1 million is actually a very small number when you compare it to negative 1. So negative 1 is bigger than negative 1 million. So let's look at this one. That one is 40, and you can see between 40 and 60, we have 20. So 40 and 60, the difference is 20. And we have two whole lots of intervals. Or if we want to count the smaller ones, that's 1, 2, 3, 4. So if you do 20 divided by 4, that should be worth 5. Okay? And that's why it's 45. So each interval is worth 5. So 40, next one should be 45. Pause the video and answer question 9 in 3 minutes. Assuming you've paused the video and you've answered question 9, here are the answers. So here you can see you've been told that goes up in 5, so that should be 10, and that should be negative 5. So here you've not been given a number line, but by now you know how to use number line. So even if you're not given a number line and you see the numbers, you should be able to write them as, you know, the numbers as they should be. All right. So here you can see the difference is 4. Yeah. So it's decreasing by 4. So if it's decreasing by 4, because to go from negative 8 to negative 12, you have to subtract 4. So you start, subtract 4 each time. Here, you can use these two to figure out what the answer will be. All right. You can see, okay, 0.8. All right. So we have 0.8, or you can just use these two. Yeah. So you have 0.4. From negative 0.4 to 0.2, you're going to have to add 0.2. Okay? You're going to have to add 0.2. So if you add 0.2 to negative 0.4, you have negative 0.2. If you add if you add 0.2 to negative 0.2, you have 0. So we are adding 0.2 every time. That's how we got the answer for these. So what we simply did, to explain again, you can use your interval knowledge to do this. Imagine that these are intervals. So you have that, you know, you don't know what's, you know, remember that represent, if we're doing interval, that will represent a bar. So we don't know the difference between there and there, and we don't know the difference between there and there. Okay. So we have how many intervals do we have between 0.2? We have 0.2 and 0.4. We have 1. We have 1, 2. Okay. So we have 1, 2. So if we have if we have 0.2, you look at that to get from there, from negative 0.4 to 0.2 is 0.6. Okay, so we have 1, 2, 3. So imagine that these were intervals. We're trying to find the numbers that we'll put on the number line. So imagine, okay, so you say, well, negative 0.4, yeah, minus 0.2. So imagine we're finding the difference between them, minus 0.2, or let me do it properly. So 0.2, sorry. So 0.2 minus, okay, 0.4. So we're trying to find the difference between them, right? That would be 0.2 plus the two negatives mean, you know, become plus. So that's 0.6. So we know that 0.6 divided by 3, because we have 3 to make 3 jumps to get. So 1, 2, 3. So divided by 3 will be 0.2. So that's how we know we add in 0.2 every time. All right. So that's one way to, how to solve problems like this. Okay, let's move on. That takes us to the end of our lesson. So I hope you have learned from this lesson how to work with positive and negative integers, otherwise called positive and negative whole numbers, otherwise also called directed numbers. So remember, when you're dealing with numbers, directed numbers, positive and negative numbers, remember, towards the left of the number line, you have negative numbers. Towards the right of the number line, you have positive numbers. And then your knowledge of knowing how to work with intervals can help you to complete even when you have missing numbers in sequences, or like the last question we did where we have missing numbers in the boxes. Okay, your knowledge of intervals is always, knowing how to complete intervals on a number line is always useful. Well done for sticking around and for learning. Until next time, take really good care of yourself, and bye-bye.